Okay, so let's just be honest with each other right from the start. You already know consistency matters. You've known that for a long time. You've watched the videos, you've read the quotes, you've told yourself this time is different, and then 3 weeks in, sometimes 3 days in, it fell apart again. And the question that nobody seems to actually answer is why? Not in a surface-level way, not with another motivational speech about discipline and showing up, but actually why? Why does something that sounds so simple, just keep doing the thing, feel so genuinely difficult for so many people who are not lazy, not careless, not lacking intelligence or ambition? That is what we are getting into today. The real, unsexy, nobody wants to hear it truth about consistency. What it actually is, what it actually requires, and why almost everything you have been told about it is either incomplete or completely wrong. So grab whatever you're drinking, get comfortable, and let's actually talk about this. The first thing we need to destroy is the idea that consistency is about motivation, because this is the lie that has quietly wrecked more people's progress than almost anything else. The entire self-help industry has built itself around the idea that if you feel motivated enough, inspired enough, connected enough to your why, you will show up consistently. And so, when you don't show up, when the streak breaks, when the habit collapses, you conclude that you just weren't motivated enough, that you didn't want it badly enough, that something is fundamentally missing in you. That conclusion is wrong, and the science is very clear about this. Motivation is an emotional state, and emotional states are by nature temporary, fluctuating, unreliable. Neuroscience shows us that motivation is largely driven by dopamine, and dopamine responds to novelty, to excitement, to the early stages of something new. This is why the first week of any new habit feels electric. Your brain is genuinely excited, the novelty is high, the dopamine is flowing, and everything feels possible. But novelty fades. It always fades. By week 3 or 4, the excitement is gone. The task is familiar. The dopamine hit of newness has dried up, and what's left is just the work. Plain, unglamorous, unremarkable work. And if your consistency was built on motivation, built on that early dopamine rush, it collapses here, every single time. The philosophers understood this long before neuroscience had the language for it. The Stoics, and I won't get into names today, wrote extensively about the danger of relying on feeling to drive behavior. They argued that the person who acts only when they feel like acting is at the mercy of forces completely outside their control. Wind and weather, mood and circumstance. The wise person, they said, acts according to what they have decided, not according to what they feel in the moment. That distinction between decided behavior and felt behavior is the entire foundation of real consistency. Real consistency has nothing to do with how you feel. It is a decision that has been made in advance and honored regardless of the emotional weather on any given day. That sounds harsh. That sounds almost robotic. But stay with me, because there is a warmth and a freedom inside that truth that most people never get to experience because they keep waiting to feel ready. Now let's talk about what consistency actually is at a neurological level, because once you see this, the whole thing shifts. Every behavior you repeat consistently is literally building physical structure in your brain. The neural pathway associated with that behavior gets wrapped in myelin, that insulating substance we talked about before, and it becomes faster, stronger, more automatic with every repetition. This is not metaphor. This is measurable, observable biology. What this means is that in the early stages of building consistency, the behavior is neurologically expensive. It requires conscious effort, deliberate attention, active decision-making every single time. It feels heavy because it is heavy. The pathway is thin. The myelin is minimal. And your brain is working hard to execute something it hasn't yet made efficient. But here is what changes everything. The brain's entire goal is efficiency. It wants to make repeated behaviors automatic, so it can free up conscious resources for other things. And so with enough repetition, the behavior begins to shift from the conscious, effortful prefrontal cortex into the basal ganglia, the part of the brain responsible for automatic, habitual behavior. It stops being something you decide to do and starts being something you just do, like brushing your teeth, like putting on your seatbelt. Things you once had to consciously remember that now happen without thought. This is the promised land of consistency, not the motivational high of the first week, not the dramatic transformation montage, but the quiet, almost boring moment when the behavior just becomes part of who you are and how you operate. When missing it actually feels stranger than doing it. But, and this is the part nobody tells you, getting from effortful to automatic takes longer than you think and feels worse than you expect. Research suggests it takes anywhere from 2 months to 8 months for a behavior to become genuinely automatic, depending on its complexity. Not 21 days, not 30 days. The timeline that gets thrown around casually in productivity content is not what the actual science shows. And during those months, those long, unsexy, unremarkable months, there will be days when you don't feel it at all. Days when the resistance is high, and the reward feels distant, and the whole thing feels pointless. Those days are not failures. Those days are literally the training. Those are the days when the myelin is being laid down. Those are the days that are doing the actual work of building the brain you're trying to build. Let's talk about identity, because this is where philosophy and neuroscience shake hands and say the same thing in different languages. The deepest, most durable form of consistency is not built on goals. It is built on identity, on who you believe yourself to be. Goals are destinations. And the problem with destinations is that once you reach them, or once they start feeling too far away, the behavior that was pointed at them loses its anchor. You wanted to lose weight, you lost it, and then the consistent behavior that got you there slowly dissolves because the goal is gone. Or you wanted to write a book. The book got hard, the deadline felt impossible, and the daily writing habit collapsed because it was always attached to the outcome rather than to the person. Identity is different. Identity is not about what you are trying to achieve. It is about who you are deciding to be. And when your consistent behavior is an expression of identity rather than a strategy for a goal, it becomes almost self-sustaining. The ancient philosophers spoke about this as the practice of becoming, not doing things to get things, but doing things to be someone. The practice was the point. The daily act of showing up was not a means to an end. It was the expression of a character that was being deliberately built and maintained. Psychologically, this maps directly onto what modern research calls identity-based habit formation. When a person says, "I am trying to exercise more," they are framing the behavior as external, something they are doing temporarily to achieve a result. But when a person says, "I am someone who moves their body every day," the behavior is now an expression of self. And the brain, which is constantly running that identity confirmation process we talked about, begins to seek evidence that confirms the new story. Every day you show up becomes proof. Every rep, every page, every session becomes a vote cast for the person you are deciding to be. And over time, the identity solidifies. The story gets louder, and the consistency that once required enormous willpower starts to feel less like discipline and more like just being yourself. The people you look at and admire for their consistency, the ones who seem to just naturally show up every day without drama, they did not start there. They built there. Through the same struggle, the same resistance, the same unremarkable days of doing the thing when they didn't feel like it, until the identity caught up with the behavior, until the person became the practice. Now I want to talk about something that I think quietly destroys more people's consistency than almost anything else, and that is the all or nothing trap. The belief deeply embedded in most people's psychology that consistency means perfection. That one missed day means the streak is dead. That one bad week means the whole thing has failed. that you are either fully in or you have fallen off and need to start over. This belief is not just wrong, it is neurologically damaging. Because what happens when a person misses a day and has internalized the all or nothing framework, they don't just miss a day, they spiral. The missed day triggers feelings of failure. The feelings of failure reduce self-efficacy. Reduced self-efficacy makes the next day harder to start, and the gap grows from 1 day to 3 days to a week to I'll start again next month. Research in behavioral psychology shows very clearly that the biggest predictor of long-term consistency is not whether you miss days, it is how quickly you return after missing them. The person who misses a day and comes back tomorrow is infinitely more consistent over a year than the person who never misses but collapses completely when they inevitably do. The Stoics had a concept for this: returning to the practice without drama, without self-punishment, without treating the interruption as a verdict on your character. Simply, you stopped, now you begin again. No story attached, no identity collapse, just the quiet, dignified act of returning. This is what psychological resilience actually looks like in practice. Not the dramatic comeback, not the motivational speech you give yourself in the mirror. Just getting back on the day after you missed, with the same energy as if you never stopped. Because in the architecture of a long life, one missed day is statistically irrelevant. What is relevant is the returning. Miss the day, come back tomorrow. That is it. That is the entire framework. Everything else is story. Let's talk about environment, because your brain does not operate in isolation. It operates in context. And the context you place yourself in has an enormous influence on whether consistent behavior feels effortful or almost automatic. Neuroscience shows us that environmental cues are deeply wired into habitual behavior. The brain links behaviors to contexts, specific times, places, sensory inputs, and uses those contextual cues as triggers for the associated behavior. This is why you might always feel hungry when you watch television, even if you just ate. The brain has linked that environment to the behavior of eating and automatically activates the craving. You can use this mechanism deliberately. If you consistently do the important work in the same place at the same time, surrounded by the same cues, the brain begins to associate that context with that behavior. Sitting down at your desk at 8 in the morning with your coffee becomes a trigger for focused work because you have made it so through repetition. The environment starts doing part of the work of initiating the behavior. The activation energy drops. This is also why changing your environment when you want to change your behavior is so powerful. You are not just changing your surroundings, you are disrupting the contextual cues that have been reinforcing the old behavior and creating space for new associations to form. Design your environment for the person you are trying to become. Make the consistent behavior the path of least resistance in your physical space. Put the book on the pillow. Put the gym shoes by the door. Remove the friction between you and the thing you are trying to do consistently, because your brain will always prefer the easier path, and your job is to make the right path the easy one. And the last thing I want to leave you with, and this might be the most honest thing in this entire conversation, is that consistency is not glamorous and it was never meant to be. The entire culture around productivity and self-improvement has attached a kind of aesthetic to consistency. The early mornings, the perfectly logged habits, the transformation photos, the before and after. And that aesthetic has accidentally convinced people that real consistency looks dramatic, that it feels inspiring, that it is visible and impressive and shareable. The philosophers called this amor fati, the love of what is, not the love of what is exciting or inspiring or rewarding, the love of the actual reality of your days, including the unremarkable ones, including the hard ones, including the ones where you show up and produce nothing great and still count it as a win because you showed up. That is what consistent people have, that inconsistent people are still waiting to find. They are not waiting for the feeling. They are not waiting for the perfect conditions. They are not waiting for the motivation to arrive. They have accepted completely, without resentment, that the work will often feel like nothing. And they do it anyway, day after day after day, until the myelin is thick and the identity is solid and the behavior is as natural as breathing. That is the unsexy truth. That is the whole truth. And honestly, once you really accept it, once you stop fighting it and just let it be what it is, there is something almost peaceful on the other side of it, because you stop waiting. And the moment you stop waiting, you can finally just begin. All right, if this conversation did something for you today, if it gave you a more honest and more useful way of thinking about consistency, please like this video. It genuinely helps more than you know. Share it with someone who is in the middle of trying to build something right now, and subscribe to the channel so you are here for every conversation like this one. Every single one of you who supports this channel makes it possible to keep going deeper. Until we meet again, stop waiting to feel ready, stop requiring it to feel good, and just show up. That's it. That's the whole thing. Take care of yourselves. See you next time.